Okay, welcome back, dear viewers. Today I'm going to continue with part two of my review of The Village of Hommlet, the classic adventure module by Gary Gygax. Um, Before we get into it, though, two things. Number one, I'm starting to come down with a cold, so I apologize if my voice is a little off or weird today. Um, the second thing is what I typically tell everyone if you're new to my channel. What I do is I play games, I record myself playing those games, and then I talk about those games. I have nothing against the flip through review, but it's been in my experience that your enjoyment of a module or game supplement once you read through it can be vastly different from once you actually use it. So that's what this channel is about, talking about the games I've actually played, what worked, what didn't, maybe give you some ideas on how to use it, um, and give you my honest take as whether or not it is worth picking up. So if you like that idea, if you think this will be interesting, you like actual plays, hit like and subscribe and the bell icon. I really appreciate it. Everyone who has been, by the way, thank you so very much. I saw like a 70 subscriber jump in the past month, so I really appreciate that. Okay, let's get into it. The Moat House. Um, oh, well, this is the book I'm actually using, the full campaign. That's for my Lamentations of Elemental Evil campaign. I've talked about that before, but yeah, the Moat House. So this is what it looks like. Basically, it's just this ruined keep. There's no upper floor because it's collapsed in on itself. So you just have this first floor and then a dungeon level. Okay. On the first level has this group of brigands kind of using it as a base of operations, and then the dungeon level is where this cult resides. The remaining monsters are, standard giant creatures, non-humans, and undead. So you do get um, a variety of monster encounters that can be used in just about any way that seems appropriate. It certainly adds some variety to the type of monsters and creature counters you're going to have. Um, I found that this is not a dungeon that is just loaded with traps, but those that do exist are pretty deadly. So, yeah, be forewarned. The treasure is sparse until you reach the new master. Um, I may have been a little hasty writing that. Now that I think about it a little bit more, there is treasure, but the big payout is once you take on the big guy. Naturally, you just have to have players willing to do the search. But we'll talk about that. And of course, there's going to be spoilers ahead. So if you're a forever player and you think your game master might want to use this, you might want to do yourself a favor and go check out a cat video or something. I appreciate you being here, but I don't want to ruin your experience by spoiling something. All right, so level one. So yeah, as I said, there are brigands here. Gary Gygax is in his exhaustive detail has given you the equipment for each of them. I don't know if that's necessarily something that was required, but that's Gary for you, I guess. So all the brigands have their items and the weapons that they use clearly identified, um, and they can be a form a good resistance to any adventuring party that's trying to get in there. So if they go in, if your party goes in and then retreats, the brigands are gonna fortify. They're gonna respond. So you can have a lot of fun. A lot of fun with the brigands. Um, Gary actually has pictures in the module of how the arrow slits work as well, so you can use those to defend the moat house. And yeah, it starts right off the bat at the bridge where you have a couple guards keeping an eye on things. Um, there are other areas to explore, of course. You have these two wings jutting off of that main center area that have some larger creatures contained in there, like a lizard, snake, tick, rats, and spider. The giant spider encounter I thought was really neat because it's hiding. Um, the lizard and snake encounter were kind of standard in my opinion, but the giant tick That was the first time I've ever seen a giant tick like statted, and I don't know why I haven't seen it in any other module because I've been playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons for a long time. But that tick, man, that is a tough creature, especially when it gets its proboscis in you and starts draining your blood. It's a tough creature, and gross too, because ticks are just nasty looking creatures, and just imagine a giant one. So, very fun monster encounters. I did want to bring up one of the this first real encounter when the party gets to the Moat House. Um, there's a straw bridge that can collapse if there's too much weight on it, and like I said, there are a couple guards on the other side behind the doors, but there's this pond near the moat that contains these giant frogs, and the larger ones can swallow a character whole in I believe 3 rounds. It is not an easy encounter, especially for first level characters. It really sets the tone for what the players are going to have to deal with. And if you have new players who've never played D&D before, or at least an OSR game, it's going to let them know, don't get attached to your party. Your background, your character background doesn't exist and doesn't matter. Levels 1 through 4 are your background. If you survive the Moat House, there's your background. Okay. This is an image, by the way, that I used in my campaign, and that drawing is actually from a friend of mine's kid who is quite imaginative. But yeah, that's what I used for the giant frogs, these evil creatures, mutant creatures. There really aren't any traps on level 1. There's like one room the ceiling can collapse, and like I said, the brigands can use the arrow slits to hinder the players to attack the players if the players are where an arrow slit is, I guess, pointing. Um, but I think the real fun for this level is the random encounter chart. I don't see this happen all that often, but the random encounter chart also included strange sounds, which when happened in my run of this, that got the players on alert. Like all of a sudden, they wanted to start investigating other things and making sure they were not going to get jumped by a giant tick or rats or something. So I thought that was a nice touch. You don't see that all that often in a modules of today. It's all just monsters, right? There is treasure on this level, not a lot, but it is there. Sadly, my players missed a bunch of it, but it is what it is. So let's turn to level 2. If you were watching my actual play, level 2 was pretty involved. This is decidedly more deadly. It's not incremental. It's like a jump, in my opinion. The encounters are a lot tougher. First level characters are not going to, I don't think, are going to survive, especially if they're newer players. I had the benefit of having experienced players in my campaign, and they were handling a lot of these encounters pretty well. That, and I have a tendency to roll like crap. So, but yeah, you have cultists, bugbears, gnolls, zombies. There's an ogre and some ghouls. The cultists and the non-humans are allied in this like cult faction, and then the undead might be allied. It's not 100% clear, but there's definitely this group of ghouls that could roam if you really want it to happen. You can have these ghouls roam the place, and they are not going to be fun. And the master has some sort of item that protects them from their paralysis, and that's why I think there might be like an loose alignment, allied sort of thing going on with them. Um, there's also a larger creature here that I'm not going to name because my players haven't found it. But there's good encounters. Lubash, the ogre, is a neat one. That could be pretty tough. My players are able to handle it very well, but I'll explain why in a little while. The traps down here are a bit more deadly. I mean, right off the bat, there's a green slime encounter as you come down the stairs into this place, and it's essentially instant death. Um, there's an interesting trap that feeds off the greed of the players. Oh, look at that. There's my typo. Um, Got to have at least one per video. But yeah, so they if they start like picking up these gold pieces as they go into the catacombs, eventually they just lose their way and they're gone. There's no save. You're just dead. You're gone. You're lost. Um, Very very interesting trap. Um, and then there's a cool trap that just locks them in the lower part of the dungeon, forcing them to either find the way out or fight their way out. There are magic items and tons of gold. The payout down here will be huge if the player survives. Um, there are the Wandering Monster chart is very much like the Wandering Monster chart for level one. It has odd sounds as well as creatures that you're going to encounter, more powerful creatures like zombies, bugbears, and gnolls. And the fight with the new master, when once he's discovered, can be lethal. He's pretty tough. He's a spellcaster. I believe he's an evil cleric. In my game, I turned him into a magic user to kind of stick with the theme that chaos are chaotic aligned creatures are the ones that have magic and are the ones that are going to have cults. So um, I think this can be a very tough entry level dungeon for new players, especially in the hands of an experienced GM. This was my first playthrough with it, as crazy as that sounds. I've been playing D&D for 30 years, and this is the first time I ever used the Village of Hommlet and Moat House. Um, I already know what I'm going to do differently next time, but players need to be smart about this one. Even on the first level, you know, the giant lizard really scared the crap out of the players in my game, and they're pretty experienced players. Uh, and like I said, the ticks, the ticks are nasty. Um, I do think it sets expectations, especially the green slime encounter. I will say that I don't like how that encounter is written. It's written as, I think, a 75% chance green slime falls from the ceiling and hits somebody. Um, I just found that inconsistent with the rules of the game. I mean, we have saving throws, and that's what the saving throws are all for, you know. So I, on the fly, rewrote it as just make a saving throw. And I think moving forward, that's how I would do it. You know, as the players are moving down the stairway, just have everyone make a save, and those who fail get hit by the green slime. You know, end of story. You know, there are some factions at play here. I wish they were a little more clearly defined. For purposes of my campaign, I just had the brigands and the cultists and the non-humans that I were referring to as beastmen, all part of the same cult. So there really was no faction play in the Moat House, but you could do that. The brigands are described as brigands, not cultists. So maybe they're aware of the cultists and they have some sort of deal with the cultists, a deal that could be exploited by smart players. I don't know. You know, that's up to you. Smart players will be rewarded. Again, like there's stuff hidden all over, and there's some treasure. The combat encounters, or the encounters generally, handled by smart players can be overcome with little casualty, you know, loss of hit points, and they could walk out with quite a bit of treasure. This is not going to be done in one sitting. You know, they'll be going in and out for a bit, which, if you think about it, is prep work for the Temple of Elemental Evil. You're not going to tackle that in one sitting, you know. So I think as a module, the description of the rooms is fine, although I found the description to map alignment a bit off. There's one part of the map that I guess maybe my eyes are just too old and I didn't see it. It looked just like a hidden, on level one, it looked like a hidden just room where, or closet or something where some treasure was supposed to be hidden, but it was actually a stairway that brought the players, if they wanted to, down to level two. And I didn't see it. And all the times I was kind of reviewing my notes, I just didn't see it until one day I'm like, wait a minute, that's a stairway. Why didn't the module tell me this? So I ended up missing something, unfortunately. Um, from a Lamentations of the Flame Princess perspective, translating this to was not difficult. I did reskin a lot of the creatures because I didn't want to run a classic D&D game, but without Lamentations rules. I wanted to run a Lamentations game using a classic module. So the players, there's no bugbears, there's no gnolls in my campaign world. There are mutated beastmen. The dark magics of the cult as powered by the Temple of Elemental Evil. Okay, Temple is the big bad guy in my game world. Like the temple is just this ever-present thing that is just causing all kinds of chaos and strife, and these cultists are mutating people and among other things. So that's why I did a lot of the reskinning. But I didn't. That's all I did. I just used the same stats. Guns are the great equalizer, I've discovered. I was initially worried about taking out a lot of the magic items, or swapping out some magic items with more Lamentations appropriate stuff. But guns really do make things a little easier on players. What I started doing is every time they fired off a gun in the dungeon, I'd immediately roll for a random encounter. Um, but the way with the gun rules automatically triggering a morale check for certain for creatures, also being able to punch through certain armor, and just uh, doing a significant amount of damage when prepped. I mean, it can be a pretty how do I want to put this? Make things a little easier, I guess. I know the fight with Lubash the Ogre was a threat. I know some people lost some hit points, but once they riddled that first shot, they riddled him full of bullets. It weakened him pretty quickly, and then they were able to take him down. So um, the use of luck points as an optional lamentation rule certainly gives the players a significant increase in survivability in this module. I've been noticing that pretty much throughout the campaign at this point. Don't know if I'll use luck points in the future, in future Lamentations games. But if you're concerned about the Moat House being a little too deadly for your first level players, luck points are certainly a good way to give them a free out, a reroll. So the $64,000 question: should you pick this up? Of course you should. It's classic Gary Gygax. I mean, come on. It's a fun module. I'm going to be using it again. Certainly, if not the whole module, I can see myself using the Moat House again. I think in the last video I compared the village of Hommlet to Threshold from Mystara, and how the village of Hommlet gives you so much more than just sort of like this perfunctory, bland, oh, this is your starting village, it's got a blacksmith. In that red box set, there's this starting dungeon that's oddly enough very similar to the Moat House. It's a keep that's only got one level, and then there's a dungeon beneath it, and it's pretty bland, I would say. So if I were to pick up a group of players to run a classic Beckme game, starting them in Threshold, I'd probably import some ideas from the Village of Hommlet, and instead of that bland keep filled with, I think it was kobolds and brigands, I would use the Moat House. I think that's what I would do, because it's just more interesting. So I think first-time GMs should pick this up and read it. I mean, one, it's a piece of history, and number two, it's got some interesting stuff in it that will teach you and give you some ideas on how to run future games and just sort of how to handle a game session. You know, I've been doing this for 30 years and I still learned a thing or two. So I think it's well worth the price of admission. I mean, $5 for a PDF. $16 for the hard copy, and that's including a PDF. So I think it's worth it, and I think I'm really happy that I've opted to run this campaign the way I'm running it. This has just been a lot of fun. I think we got 16 sessions out of this module. So, I mean, we're playing 2 hours a night, so divide that 8 sessions for your standard 4 hour game. That seems pretty significant to me. So definitely worth the money. But okay, well that's all I got today. Thanks everyone, and I will catch you next time.